There we go. Fantastic, great. So welcome, good morning everyone. Welcome to Nine Dots Development. It's great to see you here all here today. As you know, over the last few weeks we've been experimenting with different platforms to use. So today we're going to be using WebEx. As last time, my name's Kerry Clarkson, so it's nice to see some familiar faces and names on the list there. And it's a pleasure to host today's session on coaching. So as you know, at Nine Dots, we're making sure that we grow and improve the knowledge, skills and behaviours of individuals, your teams, the organisations, both in line with the current environment, also the demands for the future as well. What are the future knowledge, skills and behaviours potentially required as well? And Nine Dots does this through an extensive range of training programs, apprenticeships, and also our free content series like today, which is Developing Yourself and Others. And what we do every 2 weeks, Developing Yourself and Others, looks at real life situations or problems that you might be experiencing in your organisation or with your team. And what we're looking at is the root cause behind that, looking at free articles, podcasts where you might have seen me and Bev having a conversation about coaching as well, and also free content like today, so you can download that, and there's the blog as well. So I'll send you some links after, which gives you further information as well. But let's crack on and look at coaching today. Okay, so don't know if you picked up on it already, but I've got a slight tickle today, so please bear with me if I start coughing and have a bit of water. Pretend not to notice and just carry on. Okay, so let's look at coaching. So before we do that, then, same as usual with the interactive sessions, you come in on mute. So if you'd like to say something, which I'd really love to hear from you, please take yourself off mute and share your ideas, share your experiences, share your thoughts on coaching. And also don't forget you've got your chat box where you can write in there as well, so everyone can see that. The handout that I will send again, just in case for any people who've just joined, the handout there will have lots of space for you to make your own notes, all the information that I'll cover in today's session, plus some bonus material as well. Okay, so you've got the handout there in the link, and then let's look at today's objectives then. So by the end of today's webinar, then we'll look at what coaching is, what's the definition of coaching, how we can actually coach others by using effective questioning, and actually plan when to use coaching, when is the right time to use coaching. And you may have seen this when you signed up for the webinar. There's a quote saying, I know my team can do it, but I want to be able to empower them even more. And this is where coaching comes in. It's about learning to delegate more, let your team take on more, which then frees up your time and allows you to focus on your development as well. So that's what this webinar is going to be all about, looking at what coaching is. And also this 4-step framework is a really good guide to helping people in their potential. Okay, so we'll be looking at this 4-step framework towards the end. But first of all, let's agree on what coaching actually is. So when I ask you what is coaching, what does it mean to you? So either take yourself off mute or pop it in the chat box. What does coaching mean to you?
For me personally, it's about kind of being a mentor for someone. It's like kind of showing them what to do, like being a role model, but also kind of encouraging them to think about what they're doing.
That's brilliant, Kevin. Thank you. Yeah, you've picked up on a few points there. You mentioned mentoring as well, and we'll look at that later. And coaching as well. You're right. You're not telling them what to do. You're showing them. You're helping them with the knowledge that they already have, and what you're bringing that out of them, aren't you? Anybody else would like to share their thoughts on it? Got some ideas in the chat, and fantastic. Thank you. So yes, Suzanne, supporting people and guiding people to fulfill their potential. Natalie, guiding staff to achieve their outcomes. Michelle, supporting people to do the best they can. Paul, the sharing of knowledge and information, excuse me, to support an individual organisation and supporting people to gain insight into their situation. Inga, training, supporting, leading by example. Fantastic. Kate, sharing knowledge, challenging, helping to grow. Mindset. Reese, identifying their potential goals and then enabling and encouraging them to achieve. Love that. And Andrew, guiding others to be the best they can be and fulfill their potential. That's absolutely fantastic, guys. Really, really good understanding of what coaching is. And I love the words that you've used there. It's about their potential, they're guiding, they're supporting them. And what Reese says there about enabling and encouraging them to achieve. Because the training part is one side, it's that transfer of knowledge. Whereas the coaching is actually helping them to grow. And I'm going to share with you 2 definitions of coaching now. And I'd like to see what you think about it. So the Collins English Dictionary definition of coaching is to train or to teach. Whereas Miles Downey actually said coaching is the capacity of the individual to learn for themselves, to think for themselves, and to be creative. So from what I've seen in the chat box, I think, and tell me otherwise, I think we're all kind of leaning to the second one, that it's actually the capacity for someone to learn for themselves and think for themselves. Does everyone agree? I'm sure yeah, great, thanks, Gabby. I'm sure the Collins English Dictionary aren't going to change their definition based on us if I write them a strongly worded letter, saying I don't quite agree. But yeah, it's much more about letting someone reach their own potential from within, because then the ownership is there, isn't it, as well? You're not telling them this is what you should be doing. That's training, that is teaching, that is that directional behaviour. Whereas coaching is actually, it's already in them. So you're enabling them to actually demonstrate that. You're giving them the confidence and the opportunity to demonstrate that. Fantastic. Has anybody got some good examples of where somebody has allowed you to demonstrate, or any bad experiences? Sometimes they're easy to remember, aren't they? Where somebody said, right, let's have a coaching session, and you actually didn't really speak in that session.
I personally get a lot of my experiences, a lot of the things I did through a previous manager I had an old job. And whenever I used to go and ask him a question or ask him kind of how he thought I should do something, the first thing he would ask me is, what's your thought process behind it? Why would you do it? What do you think would be the best result and why? Rather than just telling me the answer all the time.
Oh, see, that's so refreshing, Kevin. That's lovely to hear, isn't it? Because it makes you feel, actually, I do know this and I am valued and my opinion is important. You wouldn't be in that job. You've already gone through the training, the knowledge, the direction. The coaching is when you actually know it and you're valued and you're being listened to. And that's when you grow then. It's so much easier if you went up to somebody and asked your manager a question. It would be a lot easier and quicker and simpler for the manager just to give you that answer, even if they know that you know. But the key is then is actually empowering that person with confidence. You do know this. We talked about this in our last one-to-one. What do you think we should do? So that's spot on, Kevin. Nice one. Thanks for sharing that. And Gabby, I'm very lucky to have a very supportive management team, and I think we all coach each other. That's fantastic, Gabby. I love that. And we can bounce off each other as well, can't we? And we'll look at that in a bit. And coaching is a lot about questioning rather than giving somebody the answer. It's actually questioning them in a certain way. They actually produce the answer themselves. Fantastic. Right then. So I mentioned before about mentoring. So has anybody seen this model before? Yeah. And it's really interesting because it really sets out the differences. Because great, thanks Natalie and Andrew. Great. when you come into management, sometimes you think, right, what am I supposed to be doing with my team? Right, I need to manage and train them. I need to coach them. Potentially, I might need to counsel them on some personal issues, and do I need to mentor them as well? But it's really important. This model helps us understand when and how do we use those kind of terms rather than them all being bunched together. So this model then, if you look at it as the axis as continuums, so the first axis is the way we interact with people, the way that with the person we're speaking to. So we're either going to be quite directive with this person, quite telling, or on the other side, we might be a bit more supportive, asking more open questions and listening and allowing that person to think for themselves much more. Okay. The second axis then is more on performance side, whether it's in the role, in our own lives. And again, you're looking at the performance at the top here and development, but again, work or personal related. And where we're looking at is where do the 4 categories come in, or which bit do we use the coaching side? So here, if we start here, as you can see, and as I've alluded to before, the main managing and the training is much more directive and in regards to performance. So it's much more about, this is the job title, these are your job descriptions, this is what you need to do, these are your objectives, this is what you need to do, this is how you do it. Okay, so I'm showing, I'm telling, this is how you do it. I'm being very directive. I'm not asking for their input. I'm not asking them what they think. Okay. So training is principally directive, driven by the trainer, who will usually control the process and the content, because they're transferring the knowledge or helping them develop a new skill as efficiently as possible. So they don't need any comeback from that person. They're transferring the knowledge. However, the effectiveness here depends on the competence of the trainer, but also the aptitude and attitude of the trainee. Do they want to, what can they see the benefit? Also, we've got to think about the difference between coaching here is people can be trained in groups. Might not be the most efficient way because you all are almost sheep dipping. So, but people can be trained in groups and they take away what they need. Whereas coaching is much more a one-on-one basis. Coaching is much more supportive side, so it's driven by the questioning skills. We're exploring what that person already knows, but we're guiding them to an answer that they might not have thought of on their own. It might not have occurred to them. They know it, but sometimes it takes a bit of encouragement to bring it out of them. The coachee needs to own that. So it's no good me saying to somebody, why don't you do it like this? I did it like this before, do it like this, this works. Why don't you do it like this? Yeah, it might work for me, but it might not necessarily work for the coachee. That's not their idea. I'm putting it onto that person. Plus, they're more likely then to turn around and say, well, I didn't even think it would work. It wasn't even my idea. So it really needs to come from that person. Okay. And as I said, on a one-on-one basis as well. And I mean, coaching is a really good way of following on from a training course or something that the person has been on, is to actually embed it into that work environment. Say, right, okay, this is what you've learned, the transfer of knowledge. How do you incorporate it in your day-to-day job? How can you, as the manager and leader, help them become part of their habit, this new knowledge? And that's where that coaching comes in. Again, the capacity of the individual to learn and think for themselves and be creative themselves, not us telling them what they should be thinking. Okay. I'll just finish off the last two and then I'll just ask you a few questions about that as well. The counselling side starts to come down to the personal issue side. So as managers and leaders and HR as well, we may be involved in this, but it's not in regards to work. We're not in performance. We're not target driven here. What we're doing, we're supporting in their personal development. So we'll be asking questions about how they're feeling. And this is where we as managers, leaders and HR have this ability, but we're not the experts necessarily in that area. So here we may well refer on. It might be a referral to HR, it might be a referral to occupational health, somebody who is an expert in that field. Okay. And mentoring, and again, we've got other webinars and training that covers mentoring, as it is a whole thing on its own, like training is, and like coaching is, sorry. Mentoring is something where you're actually directive rather than the supportive, because mentoring is, it might be something about that person doesn't actually know about. I could be mentored, for example, in marketing. I don't know about marketing, so I could ask a colleague to mentor me on marketing, and they would direct me by saying, right, this time next week, I would like you to have observed a marketing meeting and contributed something to that meeting. So this is why sometimes managers and managers of teams aren't the best person to mentor somebody, because there could be a conflict of interest in regards to performance and development. So usually a mentor is somebody outside of that team. Okay. So coming back to coaching then, what are the benefits then to the individual that you're coaching then, that you're going to be taking this approach, that you are asking them questions and being supportive based on their performance side of it, that you're not going to be telling them what you think? What's the benefits?
I think
Innovation, like that.
I was going to say, I think like you already said as well, you're kind of giving them a bit of the ownership. They feel like they're being taken into consideration, and they have a certain amount of control or say over what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that feeling valued, and this is really, especially for people who may have been lacking motivation, or might be turning into where they've got the training and they may well be taking it, or it's too much. By coaching, it's actually empowering them. So you do know what you're talking about. It helps with confidence rather than you telling them what they should be thinking. Fab, thanks, Kevin. Kate, I love that idea of innovation. It's all about that creativity, isn't it? People might not have thought, us as managers and leaders, might not have thought of this idea and solution. This the person we're coaching has come up with this fantastic idea. So yeah, absolutely. And Gabija feel value and important to the role in the company that they work for. Absolutely, they can make a difference. And Helena, building confidence in their own ideas and decision making. Absolutely, it's all about that growth of a person in their role, but also their own confidence as well. Fantastic. And what about to the organisation and to you as their manager and leader? What are the benefits to you by doing coaching? Because I know it will take some time up. Emily, feeling part of the team and not excluded from it. Yeah, absolutely. And you can share best practices, can't you, in coaching as well? If somebody comes up with a great idea, imagine how important and valued they'd feel if you'd say, that's a fantastic idea, let's share that with the team. Natalie, absolutely. Confidence to delegate. Yeah. If we know that the person has had training, we've coached them to do it, we can actually have the confidence to say, thank goodness that's one thing that I'm still accountable for, but I can actually delegate, and it's their own development and it helps me out as well. But you can be confident because you're investing time in their coaching. Perfect. Paul, yep, developing your people, absolutely. It's, and we as managers and leaders have to be selfless in that yes, we're developing them, and part of that is that they may well move on to future roles, but I'd much rather be remembered as a manager that helps someone fulfill their absolute potential and find their ultimate role and purpose than being held back, because they would leave in the end anyway through lack of motivation and engagement. So I'd rather empower them. Fabulous, happy and good team build successful business. Yeah, that feeling, that motivation, that engagement, absolutely spot on. Allows you to develop a high performing team. Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? You're coaching everyone. Everyone needs that time, and it's a high performing team. So it's not just focusing on the underperformer and not just focusing on the top performer. It's making sure everyone feels their own potential, and trying not to do it in the quickest way for you by saying, oh, this is the answer, just get on with it. You give them that opportunity. Absolutely, makes my life as a manager easier. I would hope so, yes. You've got lots of plates spinning as a manager and leader. So if you spent time coaching somebody for their own benefit and their growth, yes, you definitely get something back as well. And the organisation as well. The brand, people will go out and say, wow, what a fantastic organisation. They believe in me. They coach me to reach my potential. Kevin, asking questions and opening up to the employee allows us to recognise weaknesses and areas for further development. Absolutely. Yeah, it's that whole personal development, isn't it? And that trust, showing, I don't know if you know 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's showing that vulnerability, that trust, that if you show me the areas to develop, I can help you. We will coach you. If you've ever done a training needs analysis, you want people to tell the truth, because then you can support them actually fill those gaps on knowledge, skills and behaviours, as opposed to everyone saying, yes, I can do that, yes, I can do that, because it's false knowledge, isn't it? If they don't really know, they're just saying it because they think that's what we want to hear. Emily, if there's a problem, it won't go away unless it's been tackled. It will just grow and have a greater impact. Yeah, it will just go underneath, won't it? It will be that underlying ripple that people won't talk about, but it's there. You can feel it, and they won't talk to you about it. They'll probably just talk to each other about it, saying, I never get any coaching. So yeah, and it will just fester and get bigger and bigger. So coaching, yes, it takes time, but the benefits are amazing. They will outweigh the time that you invest in that. And I've mentioned before that asking questions is a huge part of that. Again, you're asking questions, these powerful, effective questions, in order to get them to think for themselves. Okay, so we know closed questions are those yes and no ones, which are useful at a point when you're trying to filter the conversation or close that conversation. But the type of questions that we need are those kind of ones that open up a conversation. Okay, so when we look at this questioning funnel, it's a powerful tool if you ask the right questions that makes them think for themselves. Okay, so when we think about open questions, what type of questions am I thinking of here? What type of the questions that kind of open up that conversation and let you sit back?
Where you ask them what they think. It's where you say, so how do you think that went? What do you think went well there? Things like that.
Perfect, Kevin. Yeah, absolutely spot on. These are the ones where when you're Reese, absolutely, yeah, how you feel, great. These are the questions where you should be, well, in all of coaching, really, you shouldn't really be hearing your own voice that often. Your role there is to get the other person to think. And yeah, how, what, why questions. Absolutely. So if you think of what, why, where, when, who, how, and also what I really like is the TED questions, which is tell me, explain, and describe. It just gives the other person the permission to just go for it, just gain as much information as you can. So you've asked all these open questions and the TED questions, and you've got lots of information, but you want to go a bit deeper. So this is where a probing question comes in. And also it demonstrates, like a clarifying question does as well, it demonstrates you're listening. Because it's all well and good if we're asking lots of questions, but we need to be listening as well. We should be focusing on the answer that they say, rather than thinking, right, hurry up and answer so I can ask the next question that I'm thinking of before I forget it. Okay. So I know that's what we do, because we want it, we know, and also we might want to interrupt them and give them the answer that we've just asked them the question of, because we know the answer. But really just kind of, whatever your habit is, I have to sit on my hands sometimes just to remind me, right, because I talk with my hands. If I'm sitting on my hands and they're under my legs, I can't talk as well. So by doing that, it helps, right, just relax, just listen. And it demonstrates that you're listening, because you're not immediately asking a question straight away. Listen to their answer and go, okay. Then form the question. So the probing, clarifying would be something like, so you said you struggle in regards to this. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? When has that happened before? So it shows that you've listened to their answer, but you're probing, and the clarifying is, to summarize then, what you're telling me is this, is that right? So it's to make sure that there's no misunderstanding, but it also gives them an opportunity to add more into it as well. Okay. And then the commitment is, and we'll look at this in the 4-stage framework in a moment, is that how committed are they, the coachee, to actually making a change, to making an action? Because we might have gone all the way through here coming up with all these ideas, but how committed are they to making that change? They might have an answer, but what are they going to do with that answer? Okay, what are they just going to go, yeah, that's fine, and carry on back into their habit that they were doing before? And this is where this coaching framework comes in. Okay, so questioning and listening skills are really important as they are part of this structure. It's a way to help people reach their potential by asking them questions. And some of you may be already familiar with this model, the GROW model. And there's lots of information in our the podcast that we've done, and also the articles that we've got, and the workbook, the handout. Lots of information there for you about this as well. But the GROW model is all about having this structure, and it's not a script. So it's not about, oh, I forgot to ask that question, I need to go back. It's a conversation. The coachee doesn't know that you're following this structure of this conversation. It is just relax, but just know that there's a route. So the goal then is the topic or the focus of this conversation that you're talking about. So why are they here today? The situation is like the reality. Where are we now? What have we done so far? What options are there to actually do something about it? How can we change this? And the will, as I said before, was the commitment. What actions are you going to put into place? What plans have you got to achieve this aim? So some questions that you might ask then in goal would be things like, so, and if it's not a planned session on a particular subject, it might be, right, we've got an hour session today. What would you like to get from the session? What would success look like to you? How would you know that you're successful and achieved your goal? What measures would you put in place to know you've achieved it? So the goal is, where are we heading? Why are we here? Okay. The reality then is us understanding everything from the coachee's point of view, because they already know their own reality. But again, this is where the questions come through are really important. And sometimes this is the bit that gets missed. So it would be like, so what have you done so far then? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What stopped you? What stopped it working? So if you miss that out, you're going straight to solutions and you might be repeating yourself. So the reality is really important. Okay, to understand what's going on with them at the moment. And then the options is, so you now know what they've tried, So the options is, okay, so what else can you do then? What could you do differently? Who could help you? Who would be an expert in this topic? So it's, and the key here is, although you might sound like a 5-year-old child, he's just saying, what else? What else? What else? So you don't just kind of give up at their first answer of, so what could you do? What solution? You actually get 4 or 5 different solutions. So what else? What else could you do? Because then when you get to will, the choice then is, okay, so we've got 5 ideas here. Which one are you going to go for? Which one are we going to start with? What's the first step to making this work? What could get in the way? How could we overcome that? What are your timescales? How committed are you? One of my favourite questions on here is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to making sure that this happens? And they might come back, say, a 7, because no one ever wants to say, yes, I'm a 10. So they might come back with a 7. And then you can say, okay, so what needs to change to make it a 10? Because there's something that's stopping them, isn't there? So you could say, right, what could make it a 10? What could you do to make it a 10? What could I do to support you to make it a 10? So what you're doing is you're taking out the barriers before they can even blame those barriers as to why they didn't achieve it. Okay, so it's a really good way of getting that commitment. So I'm going to ask you to think of some examples now, and before I do that, I just want to show you in the in your handout. You can see all the information that we've covered today are in here, but also on page 7 you've got some examples of those grow questions as well. Okay, just to help you out. And as I said, lots of information at the end there, but we'll be looking at these grow questions for now. So let's have a think about a situation that if we start with you're coaching somebody to apply for their next role. They want to go into management. Okay, so at the moment they might be your supervisor or who you delegate things to. So what they would like is some coaching to be the next manager when that role comes up. So what type of goal questions could you ask if this person comes to you and they've got an hour with you to talk about being coached on a management role? What goal questions could you possibly ask them? Either on audio or chat, again, however you prefer.
You might ask if there are any specific skills they think they need further development on. Is there anything, time management or something like that, interview skills?
Great, yeah. So again, you're getting their understanding of what that role looks like. Perfect. Great. Paul, what professional training do they think they need? Absolutely. And also there, what you're getting is understanding if they have got some training already. Natalie, what areas do you feel you need to work on to achieve this? That's really good, because again, that's self-awareness of what they feel that they have already and what they need to develop on. And Emily, what aspect of management are you most interested in? That's a really good one, yeah, because management's this massive umbrella, isn't it? And Paul, do they have examples of success and areas for improvement? Absolutely. That's really good, guys. Yeah, so what we're trying to do here, we're trying to filter on what do they want to concentrate on in this hour then. So Reese, yeah, ID the goals by looking for the gaps. Fantastic. Yeah, so this gap analysis, knowledge, skills and behaviours. Perfect. So what do we need to focus on? So we say, what would you like to get out of this session? They might want to know a bit more about what management entails, what are the policies and procedures, what is the information, what is a management role, what work have they done already, what have you delegated to them already that they now do already, what would success look like to them, how would they know when they're able to apply for this management role. How do they know they will be successful in that interview? Okay. What measures can they put in place to know that they've achieved their goals? I like that, Paul. What motivates them? Absolutely. Yeah. So again, why are they doing this? Why are they interested in that management role? What is it? What gets them out of bed in the morning? And Andrea, the long-term goals and options. Yeah. Why? What is it about management that they want to? I mean, it might be that the fact that they've seen you do it and they really enjoy. So that's really good, because that they will have picked up stuff already from you because you've been delegating things to them, so they'll have learnt off you. So it's that understanding what is it they want to get out of that hour. So moving on to the reality then, what type of questions could we ask to gauge what is their reality at the moment in regards to their management skills and abilities or understanding?
It could always just straight out ask them, what do you think you do well? Has anyone given you any positive feedback about something that, what's your best achievement or your greatest achievement in your role so far?
Fantastic. I love that. And this coaching session, they might be a bit nervous, aren't they? So if we start with a positive, what do you do well? It actually kind of, you know what, yeah, I can do this. I'm not out of my depth. I know what I'm talking about. I do deserve this promotion. So it's a really good idea. Yeah, ask what do they like? What do they enjoy? What have you seen about management role that attracts you to it? Fantastic. Where do you believe you currently are, and what do you think you do well? Fantastic. Yeah. So we're closing those gaps, aren't we, Jenny? Then we're understanding, yeah, raise the strengths. What do you enjoy? So you could potentially do the SWOT analysis. So if you've come across that, again, it's something we do in another webinar. What are your strengths? I don't like the word weaknesses, but the acronym wouldn't work otherwise, but it's SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, which I prefer as development areas. What opportunities are out there? What threats there are, which is what could stop you. So you could do a SWOT analysis with them. It's a really good way of doing it. Or the gap analysis, which is knowledge, skills, behaviours required for a manager's job, and what you have now, and what that gap is to close. So the reality that is understanding the person specification for a manager's job versus their person specification for the job they're doing. How can they close that? Reese, SWOT, then, oh yeah, looking at how that SWOT in reverse, looking to action the things I did in the SWOT. I love it. Very good. Brilliant. And asking them again, what have they done off their own back? So this will help you understand how committed, how motivated, how proactive they are. So if they say, well, nothing really, I was waiting to see what you'd tell me, you think, oh, right, okay, that's going to be interesting. Whereas I would like, if somebody had come to me to want to be coached on management, that they'll have said, well, I've sat with this person, I've observed this person, I went to this meeting, I've read this book, I've done some research, I've enrolled on a free course online that I found. So it's understanding their commitment here as well, their proactivity. What's worked? What did they enjoy observing from these other people? What worked that they might have you might have delegated them something and it worked, or it didn't work. So what did they learn from that? What extra responsibilities have they taken on without you having to ask them to? What's stopping them? What's holding them back? Why haven't they got the confidence to do more things? What is their brand? What do people think when they see them or see their name? What can they do to work on that? Paul, review previous PDRs and gauge personal opinion and performance against those of others. That's a really good idea. Yeah, you could do look at your one-to-ones and your appraisals And you could also do like a 360. How do other people see you? And then you could always work on that brand then. Brilliant. So we know what they want. We know what they've done already. So now let's go on to the options side of it. So you could summarize and show them that you've been listening. So you told me that you've done this, this, and this. This went well, this didn't go well. So what other options are available to you to close that gap on knowledge, skills, and behaviours? Okay. So again, this is the bit where you really need to bite your tongue, where you could say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you speak to that person? This is the bit where it needs to come from them and their ownership. Okay. So who can support you? Who can you ask? Who would know more about that? What else can you do? What is outside of your comfort zone? What do you do in your spare time? Who else could help you? What about other departments? So it's getting them to think outside of their immediate box, and also taking into account their learning styles. Are they a type of person who'd like to read or observe or learn by doing, or learn by thinking about the theory of side of things or the reality side of things? What is it? How do they like to learn? So Paul, allow the individual to set their SMART objectives. Absolutely. So is everyone clear on what SMART objectives are? It's easy for me to say, the specific. So you have to actually say something specific. Okay, you can't just say to be a manager. It has to be to have this role, for example. And the M is the measurable. So how do you know when you've achieved it? The achievable and the realistic is it within your reach and grasp? Can you do it? And then timely is what timescale are you going to put onto it? Okay. And then the W part is the will then. So again, what's that first step in making this happen? On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you? What might get in the way and how can you overcome that? What have you seen from other people doing a similar job? What's your timescales? What happens if staffing gets short? How can you deal with it? So what you're looking at is overcoming any excuses before they commit. So if they say, I haven't got time, I haven't got enough staff, you're asking those questions now, so you solve the problems now, as opposed to when you have their next meeting and they haven't completed the tasks, they go, oh, it's because I didn't have enough time. You can actually say, well, remember we talked about that in regards to your commitment. Okay. What are your thoughts on that as a structure? Can you see how it could be beneficial to, again, it's not a script. It just gives you, right, okay, so we've asked that, what we're going on to now. It's a guide. Has anybody used it previously? Or you might have used it and not even known you were using it.
To be fair, I mean, I work mostly in learning and development, and it's a very similar process that you go through. So managing people and kind of teaching people is a very similar process. I've used a similar process before.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kevin. Anyone else use anything similar or can reflect on how this might be useful to you? Yeah, Paul, there are similar models out there. There's one called Oscar as well, which is like it's grow in a bit more depth. And there's lots of things about Oscar on Google as well. So yeah, it's all basically all come in. They all kind of look at the same idea, which is you're not kind of putting all your ideas onto that other person. You're pulling it out of them, because then the ownership is with that person. Great, Karen. Nice one. I'm glad you found it useful. It is, and it's one of those ones, you know, some of these acronyms you're thinking, right, what was the next letter? But it does work because you are helping to grow the person as well. I know it might be a bit cheesy, but it helps you remember what the model is as well. So, what are you going to do after today's session then? What are you going to do differently? Hopefully some of you are going to take away the questioning side of things, understanding what coaching is compared to the other parts we've looked at, the training, managing, for the counselling, the mentoring. Natalie, I thought that was an instruction then. Stop talking and let them come up with answers themselves. Thank you. And Kylie, I'll be asking the questions instead of giving the answer straight up. I sometimes forget to keep on asking the open questions. No, don't be sorry. I'm not guilty of this also. Yeah, you know what? It's because the jobs that we're in, we want to help people. So it's in our nature that we want to give people the answer, because we don't like seeing people struggle. And especially if you ask them a question, you can see their mind going, ugh. It's easy for us to say, well, why don't you do this? Because we might feel uncomfortable and they might be feeling uncomfortable. But we have to kind of be the bigger person here and deal with that awkward silence, because in the long run, they will benefit. Okay. And don't forget, we might, extroverts, introverts are very different. So we might be a different style to them. So an introvert might be thinking, they might be quiet because they're thinking of all these different options. Okay, so that silence might not be awkward to them at all. It might be their opportunity to think. Okay. So, any questions or comments on today's session at all? Maxine, share this thinking with other managers and staff. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. Hello, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask. Sadly, I missed the beginning of this session. Is it likely to be recorded?
It certainly is. Yes, and we can send that out to you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. Pleasure. Yes, we'll get it sent out to everybody following the session today. Maxine, that's a really good idea. Share this thinking with other managers and staff to promote coaching. And that's the great thing with these webinars. You can share the knowledge, share your ideas, and then you've got that consistency, haven't you, then within your team and department. And then we realise it's going to take more time than like, yeah, it does. That's the thing with coaching. It does take time, but it does pay dividends when you've done that. That's great. Thanks. Raise a word of warning asking the why questions. My experience after that's bad advice. So I try and ask, how could they have done that differently, or would you know how to do things? Oh, that's good. Yeah. As in, like, is it like coming across as accusatory kind of Reese? I suppose, like, as in, like, well, why did that happen then? And so, yeah, I mean, it's if you're thinking about language and communication, it comes to that as well, doesn't it? Thinking about tone and speed and all that kind of thing, and the situation as well. Absolutely. Fab. Anyways, yeah, Natalie, yeah. Yeah, if I knew that, I wouldn't be asking you. Yeah. Fab. That's great, guys. So I've got some links to send you as well so if you just bear with me, I will send you some links. And also I'm going to ask you for my usual favour of doing a little poll as well. So if you could I've opened that poll, so if you could answer some questions for me, that would be really useful. Again, it doesn't go anywhere, it just helps us with our understanding of our webinars and make sure that we can tailor the information as well to you. And also I've put some links in the chat box for you, which looks at our free content, the 95% funded training, and our private training as well. So please have a look at those, because we will help and we can make training bespoke to you. And the bonus resource pack includes lots of useful information and also a free consultation opportunity as well, so it could help you with any training that you might have in mind as well. Okay, so please get in touch at any time, and the website's in that link as well that I've sent you in the chat box. And we've got some upcoming webinars as well. So we've got 24th of March, encouraging personal development throughout your organisation, and 7th of April, effectively managing poor performance. So some really juicy ones coming up for you. But yeah, if you have a look through your bonus resource pack, and please get in touch on those links that I've sent you in the chat box if there's anything else that we can help you with. And I promise next time, 24th of March, I will be able to breathe properly and I won't be so croaky. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for doing the poll as well. You've got 3 minutes left on the poll to do that. So if there's any, thank you, Reese, bless you. Is there anything else I can help you with? Any questions? Thanks, Kevin. I will. Any questions or anything else you'd like me to go back over? Thank you. Thanks, Emily. No, everyone happy with everything? Fab. As I said, there's lots of useful information in the handout as well. So if you have a look on there, there's loads more information reading on coaching. It's in the chat box, Amita. I'll send it again. Can you see that come through? I'll send you the workbook as well, just in case you haven't got that. Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? I know there's only so much room on the screen. You should see mine. It's all squashed. Fab. So what you can do with those links, you can click on them straight away, or you can copy and paste the chat and pop it into a Word document. Okay, guys, great. Is there anything else I can help anyone with? Thank you. Thanks, Kylie. Thanks, Kevin. Bless you. You're a star. Thanks for interacting with me. It's always nice to hear you. Thank you. Great. Okay, guys. Well, you got a couple of minutes. Thanks, Maxine. Got a couple of minutes to finish the poll, but once you finish that, I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. And you have a lovely rest of the afternoon. The sun's just come out here, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Thanks. Bye-bye.